When morals decline and good men do nothing, evil flourishes.
Bugs Moran and Al Capone top the list of public enemies. Look around you. They could be anywhere.
J. Edgar Hoover has always been shrouded in mystery. He's somebody that had a lot of unanswered questions about his political tactics and his personal life.
He was FBI director for over 48 years, and he served under 8 presidents.
The President of the United States is afraid.
Afraid of you?
The movie is really about what one man, through complete focus and singularity of mind, was able to accomplish.
We must outsmart and outwit the criminal, foreign and domestic.
At times, he was winning the hearts of America.
Thank you very much.
And other times, doing pretty awful things.
Let us not for a moment lose sight of our goal. To teach the criminal that you can't get away with it.
I'm always fascinated with real-life stories just on a personal level, because life is almost always so much more bizarre than anything you could write on the page.
I always start with this idea that no one sees themselves as the villain, and I wanted to know where it came from.
We land with J. Edgar Hoover as a young man who's incredibly ambitious, motivated by his mother to succeed in Washington.
You will rise to be the most powerful man in the country. I think she wants everything for him. She's a bit like Lady Macbeth, in that whatever he wants, she wants for him, and she wants that much more.
I want you to be acting director of the Bureau of Investigation.
She wanted her young son to carry on the Hoover name to great prominence and great power in Washington.
Did you leap like a dog?
I told him this is perhaps the greatest threat our nation has ever faced, and I cannot take the job unless I feel certain I can be effective.
Well done. But you'll take it.
And that's what J. Edgar Hoover did.
It is my belief that when a man becomes a part of this bureau, he must so conduct himself as to eliminate even the slightest possibility of criticism as to his conduct.
He was 22 years old when he started the Bureau of Investigation, which is really rather young.
I've got to get you all new clothes. You can't look like that anymore.
I have 40 names of suspected radicals already in only 4 hours. I should have 10,000 by the end of the month.
You learn about an organization which is a household name, and a man that frontiered that organization.
The more power Hoover gains, the more paranoid and strange and diabolical he becomes.
There were proven moments where he fudged stories a little bit, make him look a little better.
Lots of stories have been told about him, but this is a story that concentrates mainly on his career with Clyde Tolson and his trusted secretary, Helen Gandy.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Hoover. I'm Helen Gandy.
Helen Gandy is his close confidant. It's the one person he can trust with his secrets.
Miss Gandy, suppose I had private information on someone in a position of power.
She goes through so much with him, and she starts off as a file clerk and becomes his official office assistant and remains that throughout his career.
She was the closest thing, I think, that Hoover had to family, besides perhaps Clyde Tolson.
Did we receive an application from a Mr. Tolson?
Tolson's the kind of guy who really enjoyed staying in the background. He wasn't one for the public eye. He sort of ran the day-to-day operations of the FBI, handled the books, the budgets, the whole thing.
I want you to be my number 2 man.
I'm not much for the spotlight, Edgar.
These men had a partnership that lasted an entire lifetime.
Here we go. Rolling.
What is it?
Charles Lindbergh's baby's been kidnapped.
You've got to find him, Edgar.
I just want my son.
This isn't just about your son, Mr. Lindbergh. And Hoover certainly used that case to propel himself and the FBI into national fame.
You are under arrest for the kidnapping and murder of Charles Lindbergh, Jr. Do you know what all the power of the Bureau of Investigation means without federal laws, without arms, without the ability to make arrests? It means nothing.
He was a fervent believer in democracy and what our country was.
When I look at Hoover and what he did politically, so much of it is indefensible.
Now listen, I want a card on every radical person in this country. I want to know who they are, where they're from, what group they belong to, what they say.
J. Edgar Hoover was so obsessed with a communist invasion from abroad that he lost his footing on his position and his outlook on the future of our country. Now imagine if every citizen in this country were uniquely identifiable by the pattern on their fingers. He really was the catalyst for modern forensics.
Before Hoover, there was very little forensic investigation. Crime scenes were treated like trash cans.
You have completely contaminated the crime scene. Now, if you will, get your boots off this property.
Before Hoover and his FBI, people were experimenting with fingerprinting. They were experimenting with handwriting analysis.
You're shamelessly distracted by this hodgepodge fingerprinting affair.
But they were all considered speculative sciences.
It wouldn't be hodgepodge if we could centralize the prints here, I assure you.
What he said is, I want everyone fingerprinted, and I want them all here. Because then if there's a crime in Kansas and a crime in Texas, I can connect the two.
So when you're in a court of law, you don't have to base your case or your conviction solely on hearsay or people's testimony.
He never confessed. The evidence was clear.
So he really changed our country in a lot of ways. In his time period, he was a highly feared man and a highly respected man. He went after these incredibly iconic outlaws, putting them all behind bars.
Mr. Coppis, you are under arrest.
Mr. Hoover himself. I'm gonna be famous.
I think he liked seeing himself in print.
He manipulated the media very, very well.
Is it true that you directly or indirectly spend the Bureau's money on advertising? You take part, for instance, in the making of comic books. Your picture seems to be shown in conjunction with them quite frequently.
You expect crimes to go unsolved? Why is he fighting me? I want you to start a file on Senator McKellar immediately. I want to know what's in his trash, and I want you to photograph him at every dinner.
His life story is so much about secrets that he has to keep and secrets that he must obtain.
They knew the secrets of the most powerful people in the country.
He was a very shrewd person when it came to using that information to get what he needed and what he wanted out of people.
You remember that file we created on his wife?
Mrs. Roosevelt.
The rumor was, of course, that he had so much on people that they couldn't fire him.
Please leave the transcripts here with me.
He was like Big Brother. He was smart and cagey enough to know how to trade on that information.
Feel free and share them with Mr. Kennedy. Let him know that I have a copy of my own in safekeeping.
I think it takes someone who has secrets of their own, secrets that they know could bring them down, to understand the power of secrets.
His life is a series of misguided intentions. To what degree he did certain things as far as surveillance and manipulation and or blackmail will always be argued.
You do not believe in God. Clearly you do not believe in any personal moral principles.
Sir, may I ask who this letter will be addressed to?
The question is not to whom, Miss Gandy, not to whom, but from whom, and it is not from this office. Is that understood?
But we do know that he held that absolute power within the confines of his organization for way too long.
Seal off his office, change his locks, do whatever you have to do. I want those files.
No one will ever find them.
It was definitely a challenging production. We had to compress what amounted to over 50 years into this 2.5 hour film.
That's it. Action. FBI, put your hands up! Is there a problem? Get out of the car!
Lance had done a brilliant job of weaving these different time periods together. From a logistics standpoint, it still meant clothes and cars and buildings. If there was anybody to do it, Clint is the guy. He's such an efficient filmmaker.
Roll sound.
Okay.
There's a lot of locations, spent a lot of time all over Los Angeles.
There's a lot of good locations in LA, probably better than almost any city as far as versatility.
There was only one element that seemed like we had to go back to Washington, D.C. for, and that was the Library of Congress.
Hoover was brought in pretty early in the Library of Congress and helped organize this whole card catalog system.
The catalog's all there. They moved it into another area now because it's obsolete by today's standards.
It's almost unbelievable. We actually opened a drawer and saw actually J.Edgar's handwritten file on him.
That's such an impressive place anyway. You want to photograph it the moment you walk in the room.
Okay. Action.
Because he's Clint Eastwood, he can open up doors and get us into the Library of Congress, which is fantastic.
This is a camera rolling marker.
Action.
This is an incredibly important American figure to take on. And of course, Clint really partnered up with us and really asked for our input and really wanted to make this a collaboration.
Maybe he'll catch you there and you can just come up and talk.
Sure. Or do you want him to come out earlier when we're discussing that?
Yeah, well, I like the actors to contribute because I came from that department myself, so whenever an actor has a suggestion or something they want to add to the performance, I was like, yeah, okay.
Don't do another, just use that.
I've waited 75 years for this. He's a legend.
This is my first movie with him, so this is the only experience I have with him, and that was one of real trust amongst fellow artists and real trust that we all had the same intent and the same purpose, which is to make the best possible movie. So he gave me everything that I needed and more.
Okay, stop.
It's critical at this moment that we re-clarify the difference between villain and hero.
I think it's a story, ultimately, of how absolute power corrupts absolutely.
I mean, all the themes that we're addressing, the abuse of power and the secrecy, it's all stuff we still see today.
Sir, the president has been shot. Who else knows about this?
I only know this modern world, so my association with this is only what I read and what I know. So it's been an eye-opener.
The arrest is mine to make!
Here's a man whose power was rarely questioned. Somebody who had an incredible amount of information on anyone who would try to go up against him, including presidents.
I mean, he's part good guy, part bad guy, intruding on people's lives.
Will not pursue a single lead until your child is safe in his mother's arms.
The blood is on your hands, Edgar.
We're multifaceted people. We're not always good, we're not always bad. And that's what is so great about the story, is that there are times when you're repulsed by this man, but there are times where you kind of fall in love with him too.
I see right through you! You're a scared, heartless, horrible little man!
Whether he did the right choices and made the right selection all the time, it remains to be seen.
We must never forget our history. We must never lower our guard.
Mr. Chairman, help arm our agents so that they have a fighting chance at FBI!
You will restore our family to greatness.
I refuse to be publicly humiliated.
What determines a man's legacy is often what isn't seen. Trust no one.